Why, hello there, beautiful. Welcome to my channel. I'm Dr. Michelle Daff. I'm so happy you're here. If it's your very first time, welcome, welcome, welcome. And if you're returning, welcome back. Thank you for being here today and joining me for another video as we continue our series talking about how to be a nurturing feminine woman. If you haven't listened to the last video, I talked about how to nurture yourself as a feminine woman, how to step into your femininity and take hold of the things that you desire for your life. So if you haven't watched that video, then I recommend you watch that first because you have to nurture yourself before you can learn to nurture other people. But today we are talking about how to nurture a man in the correct way in a relationship, especially being a feminine woman. That is part of your femininity and it really does shine in your romantic relationships. But there are ways to do it because if you don't do it correctly, it can come off in a very negative way. And if you're doing it too early or in the wrong circumstances, it can actually push a man away. It's also important to know how to nurture in your marriage because ultimately that is the goal that most people have when they're dating, is to have a beautiful marriage, and it's important to know what to do. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today, and we will continue it on my podcast, The Dr. Daff Show. You can find it on all podcast platforms. We will continue the conversation there. I want you to go ahead and sit back, relax, and let's talk about this. So ultimately, when we talk about you being a nurturing feminine woman and nurturing your relationship, it's important to know that you are nurturing the relationship. And through that, you end up nurturing your man. That's the beautiful thing. You're not going in with the intention of just trying to please this person in every single way that you can. You're trying to play your feminine role in making the marriage or the relationship super harmonious with serenity and reaching a common goal. Now, what is the definition of nurture? When we talk about the word nurture, it means to care for and encourage the growth and the development of someone. To care for and encourage. I want you to think about this, especially if you are married. I want you to consider this question. Why do you think you and this man are together when you look at it through the lens of God? When he put you with this particular person, why? What is it inside of you that he really needs, that he is lacking, that he could use a little bit of help with? What is it that's within him that you're lacking that you could use a little bit of help with? We are together in terms of kingdom marriages for a godly purpose, but there are things inside of us that the other person needs. And even if you're not married, if you're thinking about marrying someone, it's really important to consider what is it in you that this person needs. And this requires you being able to be honest with yourself and putting aside all of your prejudices, all of your hurt, and all of your anger, because there may be things that you are upset that your partner does not have. And instead of you being that thing for them and for this relationship, you're upset about it. And that's what we want to tap into when we talk about nurturing this relationship. Your husband may never ever pray, and that might really irritate you that he's not spiritual, but you're super spiritual. Well, then maybe you need to be praying for him instead of just saying that's his problem, right? So it's like there are things that you yourself may be really naturally gifted in. There may be things that you are also skilled in. And then there's also just your feminine nature that a man needs. We are all created by God, but we're created differently. And in your femininity, you have things that your man desperately desires, even if he doesn't know he does. When we talk about nurturing your relationship, when you are caring for a man and encouraging him, you are doing this in a feminine way, which allows him to be able to have clarity, serenity, and a goal to accomplish. So this is different than you being this man's mother. A lot of times when we talk about nurturing qualities like being kind, being loving, being empathetic, when we talk about encouraging, when we talk about caring, I want you to think about this. How do you care for your man? How do you encourage your man? Because the way you do it is what's going to make him feel like he's dealing with a woman, a feminine woman, or make him feel like he's dealing with his mother or his high school teacher. And you don't want to be those things. You want to be a woman whom he loves and cherishes and adores. And as your role given to you by God as a helper, you are positioned to be that man's helper, to be the person that incubates as a woman, right? Our godly made up, our godly design, we incubate the babies, right? And then we birth them. But we're given that seed. And when your man has a vision and you're aware of it, or when you notice that he has certain qualities that are just so special, but maybe he doesn't quite know or doesn't know how to position it, you know how to bring that life into him. You know how to speak to him in a way that just lights a fire in him and allows him to believe that he can do the impossible. You are aware of all of his great qualities and all the ways that he has limitations. And you're not afraid to encourage him, to help guide and redirect him, but you do it in the most respectful and feminine way. You are an asset to this man. When you're this kind of a feminine woman, you are an asset to him. When you act as a mother and you go from nurturing to dominating to controlling, this emasculates a man. And the difference is you having a certain tone and a certain attitude with him. So if your husband tends to forget his keys, instead of saying, you better take your keys this time, or, you better put a jacket on, it's cold outside, you're not going to wear a jacket. When you're talking to him like that, it makes him feel like it's his mommy telling him that he better not leave his keys or he's going to get spanked, or telling him that he better wear a jacket or he's going to catch a cold. Who cares? He's really going to go catch a cold then, right? Because he's going to prove to you that you do not control him. And that's not proper mothering either when you speak in those ways, but that's the next video. We're going to talk about how to be a nurturing feminine mother in the next video. But in terms of mothering, it's the attitude of you must, you should, you better, how dare you. It's this whole attitude of domineering, control, and telling him what to do, versus being alongside him as his helper and guiding him in a feminine way, allowing him to figure things out on his own by asking the right questions and validating him in a way where he knows that you are on the same team. You're together in this. The one way that you can really find out how to nurture your man, because every man is different. Every man needs different things from his woman. And this is something that you have to realize. It cannot be a blanket statement. The way that you can decide how to best nurture your relationship is by studying your husband, studying your boyfriend, truly studying him, letting him just be himself, and you figuring out what he likes, what he dislikes, where he struggles. Maybe if he has certain vices, if he has certain anxieties, if he has certain limitations socially, you actually taking the time without judgment to look at him and say, okay, this is the man I'm dealing with. Where do I fit in? How can I weave my strengths into his life to allow him to be the best man he can be? It's a matter of understanding his needs and then being willing to meet them. Because sometimes we do understand the needs. We do see the limitations and we do see the areas that we could actually step in, but we don't do it. And we don't do it because we think that maybe he won't want it. We think maybe we can't, or we just don't think to do it. Like, we just literally don't think to do it. And this is where we have to practice as women, as wives, doing things that are outside of our comfort zone if it's going to make the marriage stronger. And you might start to feel like you're a servant. Like, let's say your husband needs his breakfast at a certain time because that's how he's going to be alert to start his day. But you wake up at different times. You might think, oh, he can make his own coffee. I mean, he can get a piece of bread. I don't have to wake up early and make it for him. Like, he's a grown man. He should be able to make his own breakfast. Sure, you may think, well, I could, but you don't think much else about it. Instead of waking up early, even though you don't have to, and making sure that he has his coffee and his breakfast in order to have a great start to his day. Or if he works from home and you know that he woke up really late and he's about to start his day and he hasn't had his breakfast, you taking it, making the breakfast and bringing it to his office to him instead of him having to come downstairs. So you're anticipating his needs and you're seeing that he's taken care of because you're watching him and you're realizing that this guy runs late all the time. So maybe I can try to put certain things in certain places. If I see his wallet is underneath the couch, I can just take his wallet from there and put it by the door. I can do little things to help him instead of just nagging and complaining that he's so messy and he never is able to find anything. And this is why he's like this and like that and all of the unnecessary drama. A man may need you to actually help him with certain things. You may have a husband who struggles with learning. He may struggle in math, but yet he owns a business and he needs your skills to be able to help the business. You may have a husband who just needs a wife who is in a really good spirit most of the time. I know this is every man's desire. Every man wants a wife who is peaceful, who is gentle, who is calm, who is feminine. That is every man's desire because it helps them to be better men. If they have a wife who is always bothering them, irritating them, fighting with them, in just constant conflict with them, this stagnates them. And this also affects their productivity and their self-esteem. So most men, I wouldn't want to say all men, but I can never say all with anything. Most men will want a wife who brings serenity into the home, a feminine woman. However, you being in your feminine energy is what's going to allow you to nurture him. You allowing yourself to have the time that you need to take care of yourself is what's going to help nurture that relationship. You will not have the peace of mind to see that he's working on the porch and he's sweating all the time. And, he never goes in to drink water because he doesn't want to stop. And you see that. So you stop what you're doing because you're able to have peace and ease and you bring him a glass of water. You bring him some lemonade. If it's the summertime, maybe you'll add some cucumbers or some mint to the water and make it refreshing and, just extra special. But you're thinking about him. You're watching him and you're noticing what does he need right now and how can I help? It can be something as big as you literally helping him pay the bills and helping him figure out the family's finances to you just helping him by being in a pleasant mood. Some men just need a woman who smiles, a woman who is just chill and pleasant at home. That is heaven for them. And I think I talked about this a long time ago when I was hired for one specific job. I remember that they told me the reason that they gave me the job, outside of obviously fulfilling the requirements, but what made me stand out was the fact that I smiled and I genuinely brought so much cheer and joy into that interview room. And the place that they wanted me at, that culture needed someone who was going to uplift it. And they felt that my presence would change the culture of that place and allow people to just feel more happy and at ease because this person actually smiles and is in a pleasant and joyful spirit. And they could sense that from the interview. And so it's that's what they needed. On top of them needing the basic things that they needed, a psychologist, they wanted someone who could change the culture with their demeanor. And that's something that your husband needs too. That may not be his primary need, but for another man, that might be the very reason why he marries you is because you have that attribute. And that's what he needs in his very stressful life. So don't underestimate the small things, but figure out what really makes your husband move towards happiness, move towards fulfilling his goals. And remember the things that he tells you. Remember the things that he shares with you that he wants to do, his visions, his dreams, and his goals. Because a man is a leader in the home. There is only one leader. There are not two leaders in the home. There is only one leader. No entity can function with two different people, with two different visions, doing two different things, and saying that they both are in charge. There has to be one person with a vision and a supporter. And this is God's design for the family. He is the leader and you're the one supporting his vision. But if a leader has no vision, it is very difficult to follow. It's very difficult for you to figure out, okay, how do I support him? How do I encourage him if he's not doing anything, or if he's not doing what he says he's going to do? But there is a way to encourage a man to be his best self when you notice that he is lacking. It does not require you stressing him, bombarding him, nagging him, or doing the work for him. It requires a different level of feminine grace. And I talk about this on my podcast. If you're someone who really loves learning about relationships, marriage, love, men, dynamics between men and women, I really do recommend that you listen to my series on my podcast, Fascinating Womanhood, because I go into very specific details on these very things and how to do these things based on the book we're reading and just my experience as a psychologist. So I'm not going to talk about that here, but there is a way to encourage a man, but you have to be very careful on how you do it so you don't jeopardize your relationship. It's a very sensitive thing for a man, but there is a way to do it. It's also important in terms of nurturing your relationship, taking on what's important to him. When your husband shares anything that's important to him, that thing also should be important to you. And this is tough because sometimes it's just not important, or you just don't see what the big deal is. You don't understand his emotional attachment, especially if it's something like, I don't know, let's say sports. Some men, a lot of men, are very attached to their sports. And if their team loses, they are just in shambles. And you may think, okay, this is ridiculous. We have things to do. Why are you sitting here on the couch moping? This person doesn't even know you, okay? They play on a team across the country. They don't even know you exist. And yet you're having a bad day. In your mind, you're just thinking this is foolishness. But this is important to him. His sports and his, these things are important to him. So it needs to be important to you too, to the point where at least you're willing to have a conversation with him. You're willing to empathize with the fact that he's emotionally connected and they lost, and be there for him. That's all he wants. He knows, but just be there for him. And that's how you help to nurture that relationship, that understanding and empathy on the things that are important to him. And if he likes to do things like go play golf or go swimming or run, you're also caring about those things too. You're giving him that space and that freedom to pursue his activities. You're asking him about them. You are interested in them. And it's something that you also value, even though you may not even understand it. You know it's important to him. And you can do this in different ways. You can do this by asking him questions about it. You can do this by researching and adding it to your little chit chats and commentary. He's going to be so excited that you know anything about something that he knows you're not interested in. Or if it's his birthday or a holiday, you can get him a little trinket or a gift attached to that thing that he knows you don't care about. It will mean so much to him. And this is how you nurture that bond between the two of you. It's also really important in terms of nurturing your relationship to show gratitude. Express it as often as you can, especially when your husband works and provides for the family. Letting him know as often as you can how much you appreciate that, how much you value that, how important it is that you are with a man who is able to provide for you. These things really mean so much to men, and they live to take care of you. They live to provide. They live to impress. And hearing you say that over and over again does not ever get boring. They truly do appreciate that. And I know we talk about this on my podcast. For some men, that means more to them than their actual paycheck. That money, it's like the same money going to the same things, but hearing you say that you are appreciative and that you love and respect him for that means the world. And you can also compliment him by doing what I coined double barrel complimenting. This is something I just made it up, but I think this is really a great way to communicate. When you are complimenting your husband on something, I think it's important to make it a double barrel compliment. So you are telling him that you appreciate whatever it is, you're giving him a compliment on whatever it is, but then you also tack onto it, you add onto it what it does for you, how it makes you feel. So you're not just saying, wow, babe, I can tell you've been working out. Your arms are looking super big. You're not just saying that. Instead of just saying that, you can say, it makes me feel so protected around you. Like having arms like that, I feel so safe. That's a double barrel. Like you're not just saying the compliment, but you're actually saying why that's something that you're complimenting. And of course, make this your own thing, but learn what your husband likes to be complimented on. It's best to compliment men on masculine things that they actually want to be complimented on. There are things that they could really care less about being complimented on, but there are other things that they really like to hear because it speaks to their masculinity. So learning, what's important to them, but also just being genuine, complimenting on things you genuinely are grateful for, and complimenting him on things that you generally think he did a great job with, and then explaining to him why that makes you feel good. And he is going to soak in that. He is going to love that. And this really nurtures the relationship. Now, there are some more things that I want to talk about, but I don't want this video to be too long. I will continue this conversation on my podcast. I do want to talk about nurturing through physical intimacy, like sex, and other ways that physical touch and just intimacy in general can nurture your relationship. And then I also want to talk a little bit about those of you who are dating and how important it is to kind of balance nurturing your man, because when it comes to dating, there is a bit of a chase. There's a little bit of a different dynamic. And when you nurture him in dating, it does look different than you do it in a long-term relationship or marriage. So I want to talk about that. And if you want to listen, you can meet me on my podcast, Dr. Dav Show. And I am so excited to continue it. I'm grateful for every single one of you who are here. Leave me a comment and let me know, what ways do you nurture your relationship? What ways does your partner, your husband, find, it fascinating that you're able to figure out his needs in? Like, tell us what you do or what you think is important based on your experiences in terms of how to nurture your relationship. And if you have any feedback on mothering your man or doing things in a way that can emasculate him, let us know in the comments, because it's also great to know what not to do. I appreciate and love you so much. I thank you for spending time here with me. I know that you can get to becoming the beautiful feminine woman that you desire to be, and I'm here to help you. So I hope this video was beneficial. I love you all so much. And until next time, remember that in all things you do, make a feminine impression. Bye-bye.